The frost has not yet lifted from the thatch when she steps outside, and the cold reaches her hands before she has taken 10 steps. It is not yet fully light. The village around her is still half asleep, wrapped in the smell of cold ash and damp earth, and the only sounds are a rooster somewhere and the slow creak of a door. She carries a wooden bucket in each hand, and she is walking toward the well at the center of the village, because before anything else can begin today, before bread, before work, before the animals are fed, there must be water. There is no tap to turn. There is no pipe running beneath the floor. There is no basin that fills at the touch of a hand. There is only the well, the rope, the bucket, and the long walk back, with arms aching and shoulders burning under the weight. And yet this woman, and the countless people like her across medieval Europe, were not the filthy, unwashed figures that popular imagination so often paints. That image, the idea of the medieval peasant who never bathed and never cared, is one of the most persistent myths about the Middle Ages, and historians have spent decades pushing back against it. The truth is quieter, more practical, and far more human. So the question we are following today is deceptively simple, and it opens a door into an entire vanished world. How did medieval villagers stay clean without running water? Before we walk into that world, if the small, forgotten details of how ordinary people once lived are the kind of thing that fascinates you, consider subscribing to Every Life Explained. This channel exists to uncover the daily lives hidden behind the grand sweep of history. The people who left almost no written record of their own, and there is a great deal more of their world still waiting to be understood. To answer the question, we first have to set aside almost everything we take for granted. In the modern home, clean water is effortless. It arrives under pressure, warm or cold, at any hour, in any quantity, and it disappears again down a drain without a second thought. That entire system, the reservoirs, the treatment plants, the buried network of pipes, is astonishingly recent. For the vast majority of human history, including the long centuries we call the medieval period, roughly the years between the fall of Rome and the dawn of the 16th century, water was not something that came to you. You went to it, and you carried it back, one heavy load at a time. For a medieval village, water came from whatever the land provided. Most often, that meant a well, a shaft dug down to the water table and lined with stone or timber with a bucket lowered on a rope or raised by a simple windlass. In other places, it meant a stream or a river, a spring bubbling up from the ground, or a pond fed by rainfall. Some settlements were fortunate, built beside clean, fast-moving water. Others made do with sources that were shared with livestock, muddied by rain, and never entirely trusted. Where they could, people gathered rainwater in barrels and troughs, because rain falling from the sky was often cleaner than water standing in a pond. The choice of where to build a village was, in large part, a decision about water, and communities clustered around reliable sources the way modern towns cluster around roads. What all of this meant, in the plainest terms, is that water was precious in a way that is difficult for us to feel today. Every drop used for washing was a drop that had been lifted, hauled, and often heated at the cost of real labor. Historians generally agree that this labor fell most heavily on women and girls, who carried water for cooking, for brewing, for cleaning, and for washing bodies and clothes, sometimes making the trip to the well many times a day. A single wooden bucket of water was not a small thing. It was the product of a walk, a wait, and an aching climb back uphill. And so cleanliness in the medieval village was shaped above all by this one hard fact: water was work. Every act of washing had to be worth the effort it cost. This is where the myth begins to fall apart. Because when people assume that medieval villagers were filthy, they are usually imagining that these people simply did not care about being clean. The surviving evidence points to something very different. Medieval people cared a great deal about cleanliness. They had strong ideas about what it meant to be clean, about what was polite, healthy, and respectable, and about what marked a person as decent rather than degraded. Their standards were simply not identical to ours, and the methods available to them were shaped entirely by the scarcity of water and fuel. To understand how they stayed clean, we have to understand what clean actually meant to them. Let us return to our village woman, walking back from the well with the light now spreading across the fields. In her world, cleanliness did not usually mean sinking her whole body into warm water. It meant something more layered, more habitual, and in many ways, more constant. It meant washing what showed and what mattered, keeping the body's surfaces cared for, and above all, keeping the cloth against the skin fresh. To follow her through an ordinary day is to see medieval hygiene not as a single grand ritual, but as a series of small, repeated acts woven into the rhythm of life. The first and most frequent of these acts was the washing of the hands and the face. This was not occasional. Records and household guidance from the period suggest that washing the hands in particular was a daily and deeply ingrained habit, tied closely to the sharing of food. Medieval meals were often eaten with the fingers from shared dishes, and in that setting, dirty hands were not just unpleasant, they were an offense to everyone at the table. Washing the hands before eating, and often afterward, was a matter of basic courtesy that cut across every level of society. In wealthier households, servants brought water, sometimes scented with herbs, in a basin and jug, so that people could rinse their hands at the table. In the humblest cottage, the same principle held in simpler form: a bowl of water by the door, or the hearth, used again and again. The face, too, was washed, splashed with cold water in the morning, to wake and to clean away the grime of sleep and smoke. These were the acts of hygiene that happened most often, precisely because they used the least water and the least fuel. But what about the bath, the full immersion of the whole body that we tend to imagine when we think of getting clean? This is where the picture becomes genuinely surprising, because medieval people did bathe, and they valued it, and in many places bathing was woven into both private life and public culture. The full bath was simply a larger undertaking, reserved for the times when the effort could be justified. In the village home, a full bath usually meant a wooden tub, sometimes little more than a half barrel, lined perhaps with a cloth to protect the skin from splinters. Filling it was a serious task. Water had to be carried, and then much of it had to be heated over the fire in whatever pots and cauldrons the household owned, because a bath in genuinely cold water in a cold climate was not a comfort, but an ordeal. Heating enough water to fill a tub burned precious fuel, and fuel, like water, was never to be wasted. For this reason, the water in the tub was commonly shared. Several members of a family might use the same bath in turn, one after another, making the most of the heat and effort that had gone into preparing it. There is a long tradition, difficult to pin down precisely but widely repeated, that the order of bathing followed the household's hierarchy, with the water growing cooler and less clean as it passed from person to person. Whatever the exact custom in any given home, the underlying reality is clear. A full bath was a shared, communal event because the resources it required were too costly to spend on a single person. Beyond the home, especially for villagers who lived within reach of a town, there was another world of bathing entirely, and it is one that surprises many people today. Across much of medieval Europe, public bathhouses were common features of urban life. In England, they were often known as stews, and in the towns and cities of France, Germany, and Italy, they existed in considerable numbers. These were places where, for a fee, a person could wash in heated water, sometimes in large communal tubs, sometimes in steam rooms warmed like a sauna. The bathhouse was not only a place to get clean, it was a social space where people gathered, talked, ate, and relaxed in a way that had echoes of the old Roman baths. For a villager coming into town on market day, a visit to the bathhouse could be part of the occasion, a rare warm soak that the home could rarely provide. It is worth pausing here because the sheer existence of these bathhouses does more than almost anything else to correct the myth of the unwashed Middle Ages. A society that builds and fills public baths, that pays attendance to heat the water and keep the fires burning, is not a society indifferent to being clean. It is a society that treated washing as a pleasure and a value, even a business, so long as the resources allowed it. The scale of the effort tells us how much cleanliness mattered. For those who could not fill a great tub or reach a bathhouse, and that included many ordinary villagers most of the time, there was the humble but effective practice of washing the body in parts. A basin of warmed water, a cloth, and a little soap could clean a great deal without immersing the body at all. The neck, the underarms, the feet, the hands, the areas most prone to sweat and dirt, could be washed piece by piece. This kind of washing, undramatic and easily overlooked in the historical record, was very likely the true backbone of everyday cleanliness for most people. It used little water, needed little fuel, and could be done in any season, in the corner of any home. And then there was soap. Soap was not a modern invention, and medieval Europeans certainly had it, though it varied enormously in quality. The most basic soap was made at home or by local craftsmen from two humble ingredients, animal fat and ash. When wood ash is soaked in water, it produces a caustic solution known as lye. And when that lye is combined and boiled with rendered fat, usually tallow from sheep or cattle, it produces soap. This household soap was often soft, coarse, strong-smelling, and harsh on the skin, but it cleaned. It was used for scrubbing bodies, for washing hair, and, above all, for laundering cloth. In some regions, soap making grew into a substantial craft, and finer soaps became luxury goods. The most famous of these came from the Mediterranean, especially Spain, where soap made with olive oil rather than animal fat produced a milder, sweeter, harder bar. This kind of fine soap, sometimes associated with the city of Castile, was a treasured import, far beyond the reach of an ordinary village family. But its existence shows that the medieval world understood and prized the difference between rough soap and gentle soap centuries before modern chemistry. Alongside soap, medieval people reached for the plants and herbs around them to keep themselves and their homes fresh. Sweet-smelling herbs were strewn across floors and beaten into the rushes that covered them, so that each step released a little fragrance into a room otherwise heavy with smoke and cooking. Bundles of dried lavender, sweet woodruff, and other aromatic plants were tucked among stored clothing and folded linen, both to perfume the cloth and to help keep moths and insects away. Water for washing was sometimes scented with rose, lavender, mint, or other fragrant plants, and the same herbs found their way into the small comforts of daily life, from the strewing of a floor before a feast to the freshening of a bed. This desire to smell pleasant and to drive away bad odors was not a modern vanity. It was a familiar human instinct, one that people of the Middle Ages felt as keenly as we do, and the medieval world met it with the garden, the hedgerow, and the meadow rather than the bottle. In an age that connected foul smells with sickness and sweet smells with health, keeping a pleasant scent was understood as more than mere comfort. It was believed to protect the body itself. Now, before we come to what may be the single most important secret of medieval cleanliness, this is a natural moment to pause. If you are enjoying this journey into the texture of everyday life, the kind of history that rarely makes it into the great chronicles, subscribing to Every Life Explained helps this work continue. And there are many more of these vanished daily worlds still to explore. Now let us turn to the part of the story that historians consider central and that most people today never think about at all. For all the washing of hands and faces, all the shared tubs and public baths, the true heart of medieval cleanliness was not the washing of the body. It was the washing of linen. And to understand why, we have to understand a belief that shaped daily life across the medieval and early modern periods. A belief that seems strange to us, but made perfect sense in a world without running water. Medieval people commonly wore a layer of linen next to their skin, a shirt, a shift, or a chemise worn beneath their heavier outer garments of wool. Linen was prized because it was believed to do something remarkable. It was thought to draw sweat, oil, and dirt away from the body and to absorb them into the cloth. In this understanding, to change into a clean linen shirt was, in a very real sense, to clean the body itself. The fresh white linen carried away the impurities that the body produced. This is sometimes called the linen paradigm, and it meant that a person's cleanliness was judged, to a large degree, by the whiteness and freshness of the linen they wore, rather than by how recently they had immersed themselves in water. A clean shirt was a clean man. A fresh shift was a respectable woman. The visible edge of white linen at the collar and the cuff was a public sign that a person was cared for and decent. This belief transformed laundry from a chore into a cornerstone of hygiene. If clean linen was the same as a clean body, then washing the linen well and often was one of the most important things a household could do. And washing linen without running water, without machines, without any of the conveniences we now forget we rely on, was a formidable undertaking. It was, in many communities, the great communal labor of the week, and it fell overwhelmingly to women. The process began at the water's edge at the river, the stream, or the shared washing place that many villages maintained. Dirty linen was soaked, then often subjected to a treatment that used the same chemistry as soap. The cloth was layered in a tub, covered with a cloth, and had wood ash spread over the top, and then hot water was poured through it repeatedly, so that the lye leached out of the ash and worked its way through the fabric, loosening dirt and lifting stains. This slow, patient process, known in English by the old word bucking, could take a day or more. After the lye treatment came the physical labor of cleaning. The linen scrubbed, pounded, and beaten against smooth stones or with wooden paddles to drive the dirt out of the fibers. Then came rinsing in clean running water, and finally the laying out of the wet cloth to dry and bleach. Spread across bushes, over hedges, or on the grass of a meadow, the linen was left in the sun, whose light naturally whitened the fabric over hours and days. The sight of a hillside dotted with drying white linen was one of the ordinary images of medieval and early modern life. This was heavy, cold, wet, exhausting work, done with cracked and reddened hands, often in the chill of the water, and it was done again and again throughout a person's life. Yet it was through this labor, more than through bathing, that medieval households kept themselves clean by the standards of their own age. A family with a good stock of linen and the means to launder it regularly could present themselves as clean and respectable, even if a full hot bath was a rare event. The linen did the daily work that water alone could not. There were other parts of the body that needed their own care, and here too, medieval people had their methods. The hair was combed, and combing served a purpose beyond neatness. Fine-toothed combs, many of which survive in museums today, carved from bone, wood, or antler, were used to clean the hair and scalp and to remove lice and their eggs, which were a constant companion of life in a world where close quarters and shared bedding made such pests almost universal. To comb the hair was partly to hunt through it, a practical defense against infestation that was simply part of ordinary grooming. Hair was also washed, using water, and sometimes lye-based soaps or herbal rinses, though less frequently than we wash today, again because of the labor involved. The teeth were not neglected either, though the tools were simple. People commonly cleaned their teeth by rubbing them with a cloth, and by chewing or using twigs and small sticks, sometimes frayed at the end into a kind of brush. Various powders and pastes made from herbs, ash, ground shells, or aromatic ingredients were used to scour the teeth and freshen the breath. Fresh breath was valued, and bad breath was a recognized social problem, addressed with herbs like mint and parsley. Dental care could not match modern dentistry, and tooth loss and decay were common. But the idea that medieval people simply ignored their teeth is another exaggeration. They did what they could with what they had. Then there was the matter that every human society must solve: the disposal of human waste, which is inseparable from any honest account of staying clean. In the village, this was managed with a practicality born of necessity. Many homes used a chamber pot, especially at night, which was emptied in the morning, sometimes onto a dung heap or into a pit. Outside the house there were latrines, essentially privies built over a pit or cesspit dug into the ground. In the countryside, human and animal waste was not simply refuse to be discarded, it was a resource. It was gathered and used as manure to fertilize the fields, folding the village's waste back into the cycle that fed it. This was, in its own way, a sophisticated and practical system, though it also carried real dangers, because waste and water were never far apart, and the connection between contaminated water and disease, though unknown in its true mechanism, would shape the health of every community. The rhythm of all this cleanliness followed the turning of the year. Summer made everything easier. Water was more pleasant to handle. The sun dried linen quickly and bleached it white, and a wash in a stream or a river was a relief rather than a shock. Winter drew the whole apparatus of cleanliness inward and made it harder. Cold water numbed the hands. Fuel was scarce and needed for warmth as much as for heating wash water, and the days were short and dark. A full bath in the depth of winter was a rare luxury, and much of the cold season's hygiene came down to the basin, the cloth, and above all, the clean linen shirt. People adapted their habits to the seasons because they had no choice, and their sense of what was normal bent with the weather in a way that ours, insulated by central heating and endless hot water, no longer does. When we step back and take in the whole picture, a striking thing becomes clear. Medieval villagers stayed clean, not through any single dramatic act, but through an entire web of small, sensible practices, each shaped by the scarcity of water and fuel. They washed their hands and faces daily. They washed their bodies in parts, and more fully when they could. They bathed in shared tubs and, where towns allowed, in public bathhouses. They made and used soap. They scented themselves and their homes with herbs. They combed and washed their hair, cleaned their teeth and managed their waste. And, most importantly of all, they wore linen against their skin and laundered it with enormous effort, treating clean cloth as the very substance of a clean body. It was an intelligent system, built by people responding wisely to the conditions they lived in. None of this is to pretend that the medieval world was a place of modern comfort or safety. It was not, and honesty about the costs is part of understanding it. Life without running water and without any knowledge of germs carried real and heavy consequences. Water drawn from wells and rivers could be contaminated in ways no one could see or explain, and waterborne illnesses were a persistent threat, especially where waste seeped into the same sources people drank from. People of the time did not understand the true cause, but they were not without knowledge. Experience taught them that some water was better than others, that fast, clear, running water was safer than still and murky water, and that certain sources brought sickness. Many preferred to drink weak ale or watered wine, in part because the process of making them, involving boiling, happened to make them safer than raw water, though the reason for this would not be understood for centuries. Pests were another constant. Lice, fleas, and other insects lived alongside people in a way that was simply accepted as part of existence, which is why the comb was such an essential tool, and why bedding and clothing were shaken, aired, and cleaned as often as circumstances allowed. Skin complaints and infections were common, and injuries could turn dangerous without the means to treat them. The medieval body lived closer to hardship than ours, and its people knew it. There is also a larger arc to this story, a change that unfolded across the later medieval and early modern centuries and altered the whole landscape of cleanliness. The public bathhouses that had flourished for so long began, in many regions, to decline and close. Historians point to several overlapping reasons, and the exact weight of each is still discussed. The devastating waves of plague that swept Europe made crowded, communal spaces frightening, as people came to fear places where many bodies gathered. Later, the spread of new and terrifying diseases in the 15th and 16th centuries deepened the suspicion that shared baths spread illness rather than health. At the same time, a growing unease with the bathhouses as places of loose morality gave authorities further reason to shut them down. And the simple physical cost of fuel mattered too. As forests were cut back and firewood grew more expensive, the enormous quantities of wood needed to heat public baths became harder to justify. The result, over time, was a strange shift. In parts of Europe, immersing the body in water actually came to be viewed with new suspicion, and some believed that water, especially hot water, could open the body's pores and let disease in. For a period, the emphasis leaned even more heavily on the linen paradigm, on cleaning the body by changing clothes rather than by washing it. It is one of history's quiet ironies that a later, more fearful age may, in some places, have bathed less than the medieval villagers whose supposed filthiness we so easily assume. The full comfort of frequent, effortless, private bathing would only truly return with the arrival of modern plumbing, of piped water and heated homes, in a transformation so recent that, measured against the whole span of human history, it happened only moments ago. That, in the end, is perhaps the most humbling thing this small subject can teach us. When we turn a tap and warm water flows without thought, we are enjoying a luxury that almost no human being in history ever knew. For the medieval villager walking back from the well in the cold morning, water was labor, warmth was fuel, and cleanliness was a daily act of care, wrung from scarcity through knowledge, effort, and habit. They were not indifferent to being clean. They were, in their own way, remarkably resourceful about it, meeting a hard world with the tools of their time and a clear sense of what it meant to be decent and cared for. The people who carried those buckets left almost no words of their own behind. We know them mostly through the objects they used, the combs and the tubs, through household advice and the records of towns, and through the patient work of historians piecing together the ordinary from fragments. But when we look closely, they emerge not as caricatures but as people, solving the same fundamental problems we still face, with intelligence and endurance, in a world without a single running tap. If you found something worth pausing over here, some small correction to what you thought you knew, that is exactly what this channel is for. Consider subscribing to Every Life Explained and staying with us as we keep uncovering the quiet, extraordinary reality of how people of the past truly lived. Because the more closely you look at the ordinary lives behind history, the less ordinary they turn out to be.